Well, you have had a very popular tweet flying around on X lately. I spotted it with mine own eyes. And let's talk about that now, because it showed this protest. A load of Sudanese guys in Oxford Street shouting, banging on in their native language. And you just kind of think, what next? What other conflict in some far-flung country that frankly has had independence for long enough and should know how to manage itself, that has actually frankly nothing to do with us, are we going to import onto our streets where they can shout and make hullabaloo, intimidate the locals in their own language?
Well, this was some kind of protest on Saturday afternoon in Knightsbridge. So, you know, one of London's premier shopping areas, just around the corner from Harrods, you know, very exclusive part of the capital. And I'd love to be able to tell you what the protest was all about, but sadly, my Arabic isn't quite good enough yet. And the entire protest and the speeches all seem to be conducted in Arabic, bellowed out through 4 loudspeakers, much to the exasperation and distaste of local residents. And it was one of the local residents who sent me that clip that I put on social media that has gone viral. There's so much to say about this. You know, when you look at the footage that was filmed by a resident, the protest itself is pretty much exclusively male. You know, I don't know how many people were gathered there, a couple of hundred maybe. I don't think it was a huge protest, but they were all blokes. And I've no idea what they were on about. But such protests, I don't think, have any part on our streets. You know, if you are going to do a public protest, by definition, it has to be public. It has to be in English because we are in England. And I just think that is taking liberty too far, to say you can have protests in another language, because who knows what is being said there. You know, I don't know.
The other mystery.
Some crazy hate preach, I don't know.
This is the other mystery in all of this, because there's one particular sort of firebrand trade unionist called Khalid Sid Ahmed, who's been banging on the usual, the colonial ambitions of the British government, funding this and not doing that, and it's all their fault. It's not. We don't want to colonise Sudan. Nobody wants to colonise Sudan. We'll have a poke in the eye than colonise Sudan. And yet it's actually not technically the British government that they got beef with. Actually, they got beef with the UAE, who allegedly are the ones arming the Rapid Support Forces, which is the paramilitary trying to overthrow the government in Sudan. And, you know, despite everyone marching every week for Gaza, when you look at the numbers in Sudan, the millions of displaced people, the death toll and all the rest of it, it is probably one of the most violent, bloody and awful conflicts at present. And so again, their beef apparently is actually with the UAE. They were standing outside the embassy of the UAE. What's that got to do with us?
Well, I didn't know that because I couldn't understand what they were saying. And I can only imagine, if the UAE has got a part in this, that they are a force for good. You know, I'm speaking this evening from the UAE. I would not say any differently. I see nothing but good from the administration here. But it has nothing to do with protests in Knightsbridge. You know, this is what happens if you import a bunch of people from the world's conflict zones, i.e. Sudan, one of the most dangerous and troubled places on the planet, and you bring a bunch of those people to the UK. They then bring their troubles with them. You know, you and I have talked about this in relation to Pakistan. You know, we don't want the domestic politics of Pakistan playing out on the streets of Britain. We don't want people running for political parties at local government or national government level on the basis of what they're going to do for Pakistan. We've seen this. We've literally seen this at Westminster level, where we had an MP who was campaigning for some flipping extra airport in Pakistan. You know, from Westminster. You know, this stuff is completely insane.
Well, it turns out that as lovely as we are, you know, Mr. I'm the big I am in geopolitics, peace broker Starmer, meddling moron that he is, has decided there's actually going to be some sort of get-together. Woohoo! Actually, it's pretty much David Lammy deciding this. There's going to be a high-level humanitarian conference in London on Sudan, which will take place at Lancaster House. On the 2-year anniversary of the war, they've invited over the UAE, they've invited over Chad, they've invited over Kenya, they ain't invited over the de facto government of Sudan, so I don't really know what use this does. But again, I don't get what this has got to do with us. Yes, it's dreadful. There's a war. There's a genocide or something going on in Sudan, which makes Gaza pale into insignificance. If anyone's going to moan about the massive loss of life in a Muslim country, perhaps that should be the focus of attention from all these do-gooders. But it's just this idea that Britain needs to sort of play peace broker and say, you know, I kind of understand when some countries like Qatar or whatever suddenly decide they want to be an interlocutor or get involved with certain conflicts or certain terrains because actually there's something to get out of it. There might be rare earth minerals, there might be a logistical route, there might be a necessary national interest in making sure that there's peace. Sudan? I can't see it myself.
Well, I mean, the only national interest for us there really is preventing or limiting the enormous flow of refugees from Sudan. A huge number of those who are coming across in the small boats are coming from Sudan, and they go through Libya, and Libya has a tremendous problem with dealing with that. And, you know, great efforts are being made by parts of the regimes in parts of Libya to actually help us out on that front and try to stop or prevent or limit that flow. But it's really, really difficult. So that would be in our national interest if Sudan could sort its problems out. But I wouldn't have said it's exactly a priority for this government at this point. I think there are many more problems to be dealt with at home, and actually we've got a better chance of addressing those problems and trying to get involved in that civil war.
Isabel, always wonderful to catch up with you. That's Talk's international editor, the glorious, the gorgeous, the ever-informed Isabel Oakeshott.